Back in the day, I spent much of my time here in the production room. Occasionally, I'd ask each person to tell a story. We'd work our way around the table, and if it was a long night, I'd eventually find it came back around to me. I didn't think my childhood was odd. I assumed every American experienced the same things I did. But every person around this table let me know that I was different. And every time a new staff member came to this table, the old staff would beg me once again to tell stories of growing up in Idaho. Welcome to Idaho, where the Rocky Mountains are so jagged they are renamed the Sawtooth. From my back door growing up, I could see Grand Teton, a 14,000-foot crag that tears up out of the valley floor in a way that just seems impossible. Idaho has a canyon deeper than the Grand, so deep the Blue Ridge Mountains could hide within it, a canyon simply named Hell. There are volcanoes here, and that's me on a lava flow. The tallest sand dunes in America are here, and Whitewater is a river named No Return. There are rich plains so fertile that you eat from them several times a week, but right beside them vast deserts parched, rattling. I grew up there with the geysers, facing down a moose, feeding taffy to grizzly bears, watching bison chase the tourists. We vacationed at a ghost town where an Indian raid had slaughtered everyone, leaving everything behind. This is rough land, vicious, so much so that 4 of its governors never set foot within its border. One town had 7 dead inhabitants before it got its first live one. And when the Civil War started, Idaho still didn't have a permanent settlement. The people here are rough and rugged, and yet they're gentle, they're kind. A mountain man would visit my school each fall during his annual trip into town for supplies. The cowboy is not a cliché here. These are men that live on horseback and get married in their boots, and their wives do, too. And along with the cowboys are the Indians, Shoshone, Bannock, Kootenai, the Nez Perce, the Blackfeet. My cousin Josh is a full-blooded Blackfoot Indian. They warn you when you enter the state. In Idaho, you only wear a tux when you're on a bull. Skiers jump from the sky. You don't live in Idaho if you're normal. You live here when you want something more. And the animals, grizzlies, wolves, cougars, predators that eat people. When food is plentiful, the predator population goes up, especially true for coyotes. As the coyote count grows, their main food source, jackrabbits, are gobbled up. Fewer rabbits means fewer coyotes, and then the pendulum swings. As the coyotes disappear, the rabbits multiply like rabbits. You can't imagine it. Driving down a highway covered with jackrabbits, hitting them because there's no way not to. And then the rabbits flood across the potato fields and decimate them. What do you do about it? You throw a bunny bop. The farmers would spread across the desert and drive the rabbits into corrals. And there the kids would be, waiting with their clubs and their baseball bats. There were awards for who could bop the most rabbits, the heaviest rabbits, the biggest rabbits. At the concession stand, they sell Bunny Bop t-shirts, and it's not just a thing from long ago. A huge rabbit surge in '82 resulted in contests every week. And there are other sides to Idaho too, like the world's first nuclear power plant. We took field trips to the reactor core. I saw the control rods glowing in the water, and I was handed a piece of nuclear waste as a souvenir. And in turn, the world's first nuclear-powered city, the first nuclear submarine, built at the only Navy base in a desert. And then the first nuclear airplane, a really bad idea. You can still see the nuclear reactor engines sitting abandoned by the road today. And then there is my hometown, Idaho Falls, a town that didn't have a waterfall when they picked the name. A town where the 4th of July parade was once canceled for snow. In front of my house there was a potato field. Behind it was the town slums. Everyone called it Happyville. On either side of my house, well, that takes a little more explanation. There was a small-time farmer once. He had 3 kids and he had 3 acres. So when he died, it was pretty easy to figure out what to do. 1 acre went to each kid, and the acre with the house and the barn on it, that's the one on the right, went to the eldest. The kid in the middle and the kid on the left were given money to build their own homes. But the one on the left didn't like that his big brother got the family home, and he started a feud. The kid stuck in the middle got fed up with it, and he just moved out. We bought that middle acre. The lot was nice, with a house, a garage, a huge yard, and a fallout shelter. The first nuclear accident in the world took place on the Idaho desert, and don't forget, the Russians were coming. So they built a fallout shelter, a big concrete box in the yard. Dad pulled the roof off, filled it up with sand, and I had the largest sandbox in the world. The house, though, that was another thing. Upstairs, the kitchen sink had a leak that rotted out the whole floor, and you could stand on the edge and look down into the basement. Downstairs, well, you couldn't actually go downstairs. You see, the owners had kept dogs, and they never let them out. The room at the bottom of the stairs was filled with dog poop knee-deep. Thankfully, I was young enough to be left out of that cleanup. My dad and my brother had to do it all. And yet, that was still better being inside the house, because outside there was a family feud going on. Mom would say, "Don't go outside today, dear. They're shooting at each other again." The guy on our left, still mad about that house, decided he should have owned half of it. So he pulled out his chainsaw. He cut the house in half, right up the middle, through the roof and the walls and the floors and everything. He put ropes and chains around his half, hooked them to his tractor, and drove away. His half crumbled. The other half stayed up. I remember climbing the staircase and standing on that rough sawn edge with insulation and wires hanging out. The guy on the left moved away. The Schmidt family bought the house on the left. Mr. Schmidt was blind, and he was a goat farmer. For my first job ever, the great state of Idaho paid me to read books on goat husbandry to him. Books like Goat Science and the classic Diseases of the Goat. When he decided he wanted a chicken for supper, he'd walk out into the chicken coop, wait, listen for the perfect chicken that he wanted, and grab it. Out to the stump in the yard, holding the chicken's head in his left hand, the axe in his right. He'd smash the axe down within an inch of his hand and then wait. The headless chicken would bounce around the yard. He'd just wait for it to fall, and then he'd walk over, pick it up, and there was supper. We didn't have a problem with the Schmidts, but I can't say the same for that guy on the right. Now, they liked animals. They had this black cat. They named it Honky. They never fed it. It kept coming to our house, and eventually they told us it was ours. We called him Honk. They tried St. Bernards for a while, but they discovered you have to feed them too. And then they got the horse. It was beautiful, pure white. It grazed through the summer. Winter came, snow fell, and for a while he could dig through the snow to find grass. But as the snow built up, it got harder, and once it got below freezing, he didn't have water. He didn't make it. A white horse in snow doesn't look like much, and the following snows just turned him into a gentle snowdrift. The horse was forgotten until spring. It hits 50 degrees in April. It nears 70 in May. At that point, a horse, no matter how solidly frozen, thaws. And a thawed horse in the sun. Dad asked the guy to take care of it. Nothing happened. Dad called the authorities. What remained of the horse went away, and we went on with our lives. But the neighbor didn't. One night, he took out his frustration on our mailbox, smashed it to bits. Dad called the police. The police talked to our neighbor. Now, my granddad was retired, and he enjoyed woodworking. So he built for us a perfect little model of our house, cute as could be. Inside, it had a steel frame. Nothing was going to destroy that. A week later, we were all sound asleep when there was a colossal explosion. My parents' bedroom window shattered, and a big chunk of wood and steel landed on their bed. A pipe bomb had been detonated inside our mailbox. Dad called the police. The police talked to our neighbor, and away he went in handcuffs. That was the end of it, we thought. We forgot about the whole thing. It was over. But not for him. When he got out of jail, he got to work. He took his pickup out into the desert and spent his days shooting jackrabbits. He'd fill up his truck, and then he'd sneak the load back to his barn and dump them inside. We had no idea. I don't know how long it took him to fill his barn with dead rabbits, but he filled it. He was ready. I woke up one Sunday morning, walked out through the living room into the dining room. In the corner was my dad's desk, where he'd always be every morning studying his Bible. He said, "David, you ought to look out the front window." I pulled back the curtain and glanced out. "Oh," I said, "it snowed." It took me a second. In August? It doesn't snow in August, not even in Idaho Falls. I looked again. Spread across our yard were thousands of dead jackrabbits. At least a foot deep, maybe 2. Dad called the police. The police talked to our neighbor, and away he went in handcuffs. We piled the rabbits into a couple enormous piles. Dad sold them to a dog food company, and they gave him a pile of cash for the chance to load them up and haul them away. I came to BJU in 1985 with a scorpion on my belt buckle. I adapted, at least a little, and yet Idaho is still in my blood. Idaho is what I am.